My aunt announced at Christmas dinner I was faking my illness. My doctor was sitting right there. The fork froze halfway to my mouth when Aunt Carol's voice cut through the dining room chatter like a blade. Oh, come on, Lena. We all know you're milking this whole sick routine for attention. You've been doing it since you were 12. 23 people at my parents' extended dining table went silent. My grandmother's wine glass stopped mid-air. My younger brother stopped chewing. The entire family turned to stare at me, some with curiosity, others with that uncomfortable expression people get when they witness a car accident. I felt my face flush hot, my hands starting to shake the way they did when my symptoms flared. Across from me, Dr. Nina Okafor, my neurologist of 3 years, slowly set down her napkin. She'd been invited as my +1 because my family insisted I bring someone to make the gathering less awkward after my recent divorce. Carol continued, emboldened by the silence. I mean, look at her. She looks fine to me, but somehow she's always too sick to work, too sick to help with family events, too sick to do anything except sit around collecting disability checks while the rest of us actually contribute to society. Dr. Okafor's expression shifted from polite dinner guest to something harder, more clinical. But before she could speak, Carol was already building momentum. My neighbor's daughter has the same thing Lena claims to have, and she works full-time as a nurse. She doesn't make excuses or expect everyone to cater to her. She just gets on with life like an adult. Carol took a long sip of wine, her face flushed from alcohol and righteousness. I've been saying this for years, but nobody wants to hear it. Lena learned early that playing sick gets her sympathy and special treatment. First it was stomach aches to skip school. Then it was migraines to avoid family obligations. Now it's this fancy diagnosis that nobody can prove. She made air quotes around the word diagnosis, and I felt something inside me crack. My mother's face had gone pale. My father was staring at his plate like the pattern on the china held answers. Not one person at that table defended me. Not one voice rose to say, that's enough, or you're wrong, or stop talking. Carol wasn't finished. And the timing is awfully convenient, isn't it? Right after the divorce, suddenly her symptoms get so much worse. Right when she needs an excuse for why she can't get a job or move out of her parents' basement. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Sometimes the truth hurts, but somebody needs to say it. She looked around the table for support and found several nodding heads. My cousin Ashley was nodding. My uncle Richard was nodding. Even my grandmother looked uncertain, like maybe Carol had a point. 3 years of doctor appointments, emergency room visits, medical bills that bankrupted me, friendships lost because I couldn't keep plans, a marriage destroyed because my husband couldn't handle having a sick wife, and my own family thought I was faking. The betrayal felt like being gutted. Dr. Okafor stood up. Her chair scraped against the hardwood floor, the sound sharp and deliberate. She was a tall woman, nearly 6 feet, and when she stood, she commanded the room's attention. Excuse me, she said, her voice carrying the kind of authority that makes people pay attention. I'm Dr. Nina Okafor. I'm a neurologist at Mercy Hospital, and I've been Lena's treating physician for 3 years. The color drained from Carol's face. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again like a fish gasping for air. Oh, she said weakly. I didn't realize, I thought you were just a friend. Dr. Okafor pulled her phone from her purse and held it up. I'm recording this conversation from this moment forward. I want everyone at this table to understand that what I'm about to say is not just my personal opinion but my professional medical assessment, and I will provide documentation to support every word if necessary. She looked directly at Carol. What you just said constitutes harassment of a disabled person. It demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of chronic illness, and it's causing direct harm to my patient's mental and physical health. I've watched Lena's vitals change just in the past 2 minutes. Her hands are shaking. Her breathing has become rapid and shallow. She's experiencing a stress response that will likely trigger a symptom flare that could last days or weeks. Carol tried to speak, but Dr. Okafor held up her hand. I'm not finished. Lena has postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, commonly called POTS. It's a form of dysautonomia, a dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system. Her body cannot properly regulate blood pressure, heart rate, digestion, temperature control, or dozens of other automatic functions that healthy people never think about. Standing up can make her heart rate spike to 160 beats per minute. Eating a meal can cause her blood pressure to drop so low she passes out. Taking a hot shower can trigger symptoms that feel like a heart attack. She spoke calmly, methodically, like she was teaching a medical school class. POTS is not visible. There's no rash, no obvious deformity, no clear external sign that someone is suffering. But that doesn't make it any less real or any less debilitating. Lena has been hospitalized 14 times in the 3 years I've treated her. She's had countless tests, procedures, and treatments. She takes 9 medications daily just to manage her symptoms enough to have any quality of life. My mother had tears running down her face. My father had finally looked up from his plate, his expression shifting from embarrassment to something like horror. Carol sat frozen, her wine glass still in her hand, staring at Dr. Okafor like she was watching her entire worldview crumble. Your neighbor's daughter who works as a nurse, Dr. Okafor continued. Either she doesn't have POTS, or she has a very mild case, or she's suffering terribly and hiding it because people like you have made her feel like she has to prove her worth by destroying her health. POTS exists on a spectrum. Some patients can work full-time with accommodations. Others are completely bedbound. Lena falls somewhere in the middle. She has good days and bad days, but even her good days would be unbearable for most healthy people. Dr. Okafor turned to address the entire table. Invisible illnesses are still real illnesses. Chronic conditions don't care about your opinions or your skepticism. And family members who accuse sick relatives of faking are causing measurable harm that often makes the condition worse. She sat back down and looked at me. Lena, would you like to leave? Because I think we should go. I nodded, not trusting my voice. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't have held my fork anyway. My heart was racing. That familiar feeling of my body betraying me, adrenaline flooding my system with nowhere to go. Dr. Okafor stood again and offered me her arm for stability. As I stood, my vision tunneled and darkened at the edges. My heart rate spiked and I felt that terrible lightheaded feeling that meant I might pass out. Dr. Okafor steadied me, her hand firm on my elbow, and we walked slowly toward the door. Behind us, the table erupted. My mother was crying loudly now, saying, "Carol, how could you?" My father's voice, angry in a way I'd rarely heard, telling Carol she needed to leave. Carol defending herself, her voice shrill and defensive, saying she was just trying to help, that enabling wasn't kindness, that someone needed to push me to try harder. My grandmother's wavering voice asking if anyone wanted more ham. We made it to Dr. Okafor's car before I collapsed. She'd parked close because she'd seen how tired I was when we arrived. The moment she opened the passenger door, my legs gave out, and I sank onto the seat, my whole body shaking. She checked my pulse, timing it against her watch. 182 beats per minute, she said quietly. Your body just went through a massive stress response. We need to get fluids in you and get your heart rate down. She pulled a bottle of electrolyte solution from her medical bag in the back seat, something she apparently kept on hand, and made me drink it slowly while she monitored my pulse. I'm sorry, I managed to say through chattering teeth, even though the car heater was running. You shouldn't have had to deal with that. Dr. Okafor looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Lena, how long has your family been saying things like this? I thought about all the comments over the years, the suggestions that I just needed to exercise more, think positively, try harder, stop being so negative. The implications that I was lazy, that I was exaggerating, that I was seeking attention. Since I was diagnosed, I admitted. Maybe before. When I was a teenager, I had a lot of unexplained symptoms. Fainting, fatigue, stomach problems. My mom took me to so many doctors. When they couldn't find anything obvious, my dad started saying I was just anxious or stressed, that it was all in my head. When I got the POTS diagnosis at 24, part of me was relieved because it meant I wasn't crazy. But my family acted like the diagnosis changed nothing. They still treated me like I was making excuses. Dr. Okafor's jaw tightened. Your medical records show a pattern of delayed treatment and misdiagnoses because doctors didn't take your symptoms seriously. Your family's attitude likely contributed to that. If you've been taught from childhood that your symptoms aren't real, you learn to minimize them, to doubt yourself, to not advocate for proper care. She checked my pulse again. 165. It's coming down, but you're still tachycardic. I'm going to drive you to my apartment. You're in no condition to be alone tonight, and I don't trust that you won't have a severe flare from this stress. I started to protest, but she shook her head. This isn't optional. You're my patient, and right now you need medical supervision. I have a guest room. You'll stay there tonight, and we'll reassess in the morning. She started driving, navigating the dark streets with the confidence of someone who'd lived in the city for years. My phone was buzzing constantly in my purse. I didn't have the energy to look at it. My family is going to be so angry, I said, more to myself than to her. Let them be angry, Dr. Okafor said firmly. What your aunt did was cruel. What your family did by not defending you was worse. Silence in the face of cruelty is complicity. She glanced at me. I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest. Has your family's attitude toward your illness affected your treatment decisions or your quality of life? I felt tears starting, the kind I'd been holding back for years. I stopped using my wheelchair in public because my cousin made comments about me being lazy. I push myself past my limits at family events because I'm afraid they'll say I'm not trying. I've skipped medications that help because they're expensive, and my dad made me feel guilty about the cost. Dr. Okafor pulled over suddenly, parking on a quiet residential street. She turned to face me fully. Lena, what I'm about to tell you is something I should have addressed earlier, but I didn't realize the extent of what you were dealing with. Your family is medically abusing you. That's the clinical term. They're denying the reality of your condition. They're pressuring you to engage in harmful behaviors, and they're preventing you from getting appropriate care. This is a form of abuse, and it's making your condition worse. The word abuse hit me like cold water. But they're my family. They love me. They just don't understand. Dr. Okafor's expression was gentle but firm. Love and abuse aren't mutually exclusive. People can love you and still harm you, especially when they're operating from ignorance, denial, or their own emotional needs. Your aunt's outburst tonight? That wasn't about you. That was about her need to feel superior, to have simple answers to complex problems, to maintain her worldview where illness only happens to people who don't try hard enough. She started driving again. We're going to talk more about this, but right now you need rest and stability. Your pulse is still too high and your blood pressure is probably in your boots. We drove in silence for a while. I watched the city lights blur past the window, feeling disconnected from my own body, which was still shaking and sending distress signals I'd learned to recognize. Adrenaline crash coming. Symptom flare imminent. Days of feeling worse ahead. Dr. Okafor's apartment was in a modern building near the hospital. All clean lines and professional decor. She helped me inside, steadied me when I swayed getting out of the car, and settled me on her couch with blankets and pillows. She checked my vitals again, took notes in what looked like a personal medical journal, and made me drink more electrolytes. "I'm going to make some calls," she said. "There are people who need to know what happened tonight. Is that okay with you?" I nodded, too exhausted to ask questions. She disappeared into another room and I could hear her voice, professional and clipped, talking to someone about medical abuse, patient advocacy, and documentation. When she came back, she had a notebook and sat down in the chair across from me. "We need to talk about your living situation. You said you live in your parents' basement?" "I had to move back after the divorce," I explained. "I couldn't afford rent on disability payments alone, and I needed help on bad days. My ex-husband got the house. My medical debt made it impossible to qualify for my own apartment." Dr. Okafor wrote something down. "How often do your parents help with your medical needs? Transportation to appointments, meal preparation during flares, assistance with activities of daily living when you're symptomatic?" I thought about it. "My mom drives me to appointments sometimes, but mostly I manage on my own. They work full-time and they're busy. I try not to bother them." She looked up sharply. "Lena, you have a disabling medical condition. You're not bothering them by needing help. That's what family is supposed to do." Her tone softened. "But based on what I saw tonight, I'm guessing they've made you feel like a burden for needing support." I couldn't answer because she was right, and admitting it out loud felt like betraying my family. Dr. Okafor set down her notebook. "I want to show you something." She pulled out her phone and opened her photos, scrolling to find something specific. "This is my sister Amara. She has lupus, diagnosed 8 years ago." She showed me a photo of a beautiful woman who looked like a younger version of Dr. Okafor, smiling at the camera despite visible exhaustion in her eyes. For the first 2 years after her diagnosis, our family didn't understand. My parents thought she was depressed. My brothers thought she was being dramatic. I was in medical school and I thought I knew better, that she just needed to manage her condition better, exercise more, eat cleaner. I was an idiot. Her voice was heavy with old guilt. Amara tried to kill herself 18 months after her diagnosis. She left a note saying she was tired of being a burden, tired of no one believing how much she was suffering, tired of fighting an invisible war that everyone said wasn't real. She survived, thank God, but barely. And that's when I finally understood what I'd been doing to her. Dr. Okafor looked at me directly. "I became a neurologist specializing in dysautonomia and chronic illness because of Amara. I dedicated my career to helping patients like you because I failed my own sister when she needed me. And when I saw what happened tonight, I saw Amara at that dinner table, hearing the same things from people who were supposed to protect her. The weight of her confession settled over the room. I understood now why she'd reacted so strongly, why she'd recorded the conversation, why she'd brought me to her home instead of just driving me back to my parents' basement. "What happened to your sister?" I asked quietly. "She's alive and doing better. But it took years of therapy, medication adjustments, and completely restructuring her relationship with our family. She had to set hard boundaries. She stopped going to family events where people questioned her illness. She cut off relatives who refused to educate themselves. It was painful, but it saved her life." Dr. Okafor put her phone away. "I'm not saying you need to cut off your family, but I am saying that you need to protect yourself from people who are making you sicker, even if those people are your relatives. Your health has to come first." She stood up. "I'm going to make you some tea and then you're going to sleep. Tomorrow we'll talk about next steps. But tonight, you're safe here. Nobody is going to question your illness or make you feel like you need to prove how sick you are. You can just rest." I slept for 14 hours. When I finally woke up, late morning sun was streaming through unfamiliar windows, and for a moment I couldn't remember where I was. Then it all came flooding back. Christmas dinner, Carol's accusations, Dr. Okafor's intervention, the car ride, and the conversation that followed. I checked my phone and immediately regretted it. 63 missed calls, 47 text messages, multiple voicemails. I scrolled through the messages, my stomach sinking with each one. My mother. "Lena, please call me." Carol left in tears. "Your father is so upset. We need to talk about this." My father. "You embarrassed this family by making a scene at Christmas dinner. We need to discuss your behavior and your attitude toward family members who are just trying to help." My brother. "What the hell happened? Mom's losing it and Dad's furious. Carol's posting on Facebook about being attacked by your doctor. Call me." Multiple messages from relatives, some sympathetic, most critical. Carol had apparently spent the evening messaging everyone, spinning her version of events where she was the victim of an unprovoked attack by my aggressive doctor. Dr. Okafor knocked softly on the door. "You're awake. How do you feel?" I did a mental inventory of my symptoms. Heart rate elevated but not dangerously so. Hands still shaky, head foggy, body aching. About how I expected. Flare is starting. She came in with a breakfast tray, toast, electrolyte drink, and my morning medications that she must have had me bring in from her car last night. I figured. Your body went through significant stress. This is normal for POTS. The flare will probably last 3 to 5 days, possibly longer. She sat down in the chair by the window. I've been thinking about what happened last night, and I want to discuss some options with you. But first, have you looked at your phone? I nodded miserably. My family is really angry. Carol's telling everyone I attacked her. My dad says I embarrassed the family. Dr. Okafor's expression hardened. Let me see your phone. I handed it over, watching her scroll through the messages, her frown deepening. She screenshot several of them, then handed the phone back. Those messages are going in your medical file as documentation of ongoing family dysfunction affecting patient health, and I'm going to be very direct with you now. Your family's response to last night confirms everything I suspected. They're more concerned about their image and Carol's feelings than about your health and well-being. She pulled out her notebook again. I made some calls this morning. I spoke with a social worker who specializes in disability rights, a lawyer who handles medical abuse cases, and a colleague who runs a support group for chronic illness patients dealing with family dysfunction. They're all willing to meet with you if you're interested. I stared at her. You did all that this morning? Dr. Okafor smiled slightly. I told you I failed my sister. I'm not failing another patient the same way. You need resources and support beyond what I can provide as your doctor. Last night showed me that your medical condition is being significantly worsened by your family environment. As your physician, I have an ethical obligation to address that. She handed me a piece of paper with 3 names and phone numbers. These are your options, but I want to suggest something else as well. I think you should consider finding alternative housing. Living with people who don't believe your illness is real and who actively undermine your treatment is dangerous for your health. I can't afford my own place, I said, feeling defeated before we even started this conversation. Disability payments don't cover rent in this city, and I can't work full-time. Dr. Okafor nodded. I know. That's why I called Teresa Vaughn this morning. She's the social worker. She specializes in finding housing solutions for disabled adults who need to escape unhealthy family situations. There are options. Subsidized housing for people with disabilities, shared housing with other chronic illness patients, medical foster care for adults in some cases. It's not ideal, but it's better than living in an environment that's actively making you sicker. She leaned forward. Lena, I've reviewed your medical records from the past 3 years. Your symptom severity correlates directly with family stress. After family events, you consistently have increased emergency room visits, medication adjustments, and symptom flares. Your worst hospitalization happened 3 days after Thanksgiving last year. Do you remember what happened at Thanksgiving? I remembered. My uncle had made comments about how I was just depressed and needed to snap out of it. My grandmother had suggested I try essential oils instead of all those chemicals. Carol had brought her neighbor's daughter to dinner and spent the evening comparing us, highlighting everything the other woman could do that I supposedly couldn't. I ended up in the ER with a heart rate over 180 that wouldn't come down, I said quietly. They kept me for 3 days. Dr. Okafor nodded. Exactly. Your family environment is a direct threat to your physical health. This isn't about hurt feelings or family drama. This is about your survival. The word survival felt dramatic, but looking at my medical history, maybe it wasn't. How many times had I pushed myself past my limits because family members made me feel guilty for resting? How many medications had I skipped or delayed because I didn't want to burden my parents with pharmacy costs? How many times had I ignored warning signs of a serious flare because I didn't want to be accused of exaggerating? I don't know if I can do this, I admitted. They're my family. I've already lost my husband, my career, most of my friends. If I lose my family too, I'll have nothing. Dr. Okafor's expression was understanding but firm. You'll have your health, or at least the best health you can manage with POTS, and you'll have the opportunity to build a support system of people who actually believe and support you. Quality matters more than quantity when it comes to relationships. She stood up. I'm not going to pressure you to make any decisions today. You're in the middle of a flare and you're not in the right headspace for major life choices. But I want you to think about something. If your family's attitude toward your illness doesn't change, what does your life look like 5 years from now? 10 years? Can you sustain this level of stress and invalidation while managing a chronic condition? The question haunted me for the rest of the day. I stayed at Dr. Okafor's apartment, resting and trying to manage my symptoms. She checked on me between her own weekend errands, making sure I was eating and staying hydrated. She didn't pressure me about the phone calls or messages from my family. Just let me exist in a space where nobody questioned whether I was really sick. That evening, my brother showed up at Dr. Okafor's apartment building. I don't know how he found the address. Maybe he'd followed us the night before, or maybe my mother had tracking on my phone. Dr. Okafor answered the intercom and her voice was cold. Unless you're here to apologize to your sister, you need to leave. My brother's voice came through tinny and frustrated. I need to talk to Lena. Our parents are freaking out. Carol is threatening to sue you for defamation. This whole thing is out of control. Dr. Okafor looked at me. Do you want to see him? Part of me did. My brother Leo and I had been close growing up, but I also remembered that he'd sat at that dinner table and said nothing while Carol eviscerated me. He'd nodded along with some of her points. He'd chosen family peace over defending me. Not tonight, I said. I'm not ready. Dr. Okafor relayed the message. Leo tried to argue, but she cut him off. Your sister has a medical condition that's being actively exacerbated by family stress. She's in the middle of a symptom flare that was directly triggered by your aunt's behavior and your family's failure to intervene. When she's ready to talk, she'll reach out. Until then, you need to respect her boundaries. She disconnected the intercom and came back to the living room. Good job setting a boundary. That's harder than it sounds, especially with family. The next morning, my mother called Dr. Okafor directly. I don't know how she got the number, probably from the hospital directory. I heard Dr. Okafor's half of the conversation from the guest room, her voice professional but firm. Mrs. Novak, I understand you're concerned about your daughter, but she's an adult, and she's made the choice not to speak with family members right now. That's her right. A pause while my mother apparently argued. No, she's not being held against her will. She's recovering from a stress-induced symptom flare in a safe environment. She can leave whenever she wants. Another pause. I'm not turning her against her family. I'm providing medical care and ensuring she has a space to recover without additional stress. Dr. Okafor's voice got sharper. Mrs. Novak, let me be very clear. What happened at Christmas dinner was not acceptable. Your daughter was publicly humiliated and accused of faking a legitimate medical condition by a family member, and not one person at that table defended her. That failure has consequences. If you want to rebuild your relationship with Lena, you need to acknowledge the harm that was done and take concrete steps to educate yourself about her condition. A longer pause. Then, I'm going to give you the number for a family therapist who specializes in chronic illness. I strongly suggest you make an appointment. Until then, Lena will contact you when she's ready. She hung up and came into the guest room. Your mother is very upset. She wants you to come home so you can talk this through as a family. Her tone made it clear what she thought of that idea. She thinks you're manipulating me, I guessed. Dr. Okafor nodded. She said I'm taking advantage of your vulnerability to drive a wedge between you and your family. She suggested I have boundary issues with my patients and possibly unethical motivations. She sat down on the edge of the bed. Lena, I want to be completely transparent with you. What I'm doing is unusual. Most doctors would have intervened at the dinner, maybe made a statement about your condition, and then backed off. I'm going further because of my personal experience with my sister and because I can see that your family dynamics are directly impacting your health outcomes. But your mother isn't entirely wrong that this is crossing some traditional doctor-patient boundaries. She looked at me seriously. If at any point you feel uncomfortable with the level of involvement I've had in your situation, you can absolutely tell me and I'll step back. You can switch to another neurologist in my practice. I won't take it personally and it won't affect your care. I want to make sure you don't feel pressured or manipulated, because that would defeat the entire purpose of helping you escape a manipulative environment. I thought about it. You saved me. At that dinner, you stood up for me when nobody else would. You're the first person in years who's treated me like my illness is real and valid. I don't feel manipulated. I feel protected. Dr. Okafor's shoulders relaxed slightly. Okay, but if that changes, you tell me immediately. She pulled out her phone. I need to show you something else. Carol has been very active on social media. She pulled up Facebook and showed me Carol's posts. There were 3 from the night of the dinner and 2 more from yesterday. They told a very different story than what actually happened. According to Carol's version, she'd expressed gentle concern about my well-being at a family dinner, suggesting that maybe I needed mental health support in addition to physical treatment. My aggressive doctor had attacked her verbally, recorded her without consent, and made threats about reporting her for harassment. Carol painted herself as a caring aunt, being victimized by an overreaching medical professional who'd gotten personally involved in family business. The posts had dozens of comments, mostly supportive of Carol. People I'd never met were calling Dr. Okafor unprofessional. Several of my relatives had commented agreeing with Carol's version, adding their own stories about how I'd always been difficult or dramatic or attention-seeking. My cousin Ashley wrote a long comment about how I'd faked being sick to get out of helping with her wedding 3 years ago. My uncle Richard shared the post with a caption about snowflake generation and victim mentality. This is defamation, Dr. Okafor said calmly. She's lying about what happened, and she's doing it publicly in a way that damages both your reputation and mine. The recording I made protects us both. I have documented evidence of exactly what was said and how events unfolded. She screenshot the posts. I'm sending these to the lawyer I mentioned. Her name is Patricia Keene. She handles cases involving medical discrimination and family abuse. She's going to want to talk to you about a potential restraining order against Carol and possibly a defamation suit. A lawsuit against my aunt? The idea felt surreal. It sounds extreme, I know. But look at what she's doing. She's not just refusing to apologize or acknowledge what happened. She's actively lying about events to make herself look like a victim and to further damage your credibility. This is a pattern of behavior designed to isolate you and make it harder for you to get support. It's abusive, Lena, and it needs to stop. I looked at the Facebook posts again, reading the comments from relatives who were supposed to love me, seeing how quickly they'd accepted Carol's lies, how eager they were to believe I was the problem. Maybe Dr. Okafor was right. Maybe this wasn't about family drama or misunderstandings. Maybe this was abuse. And maybe I'd been too close to it for too long to see it clearly. Okay, I said quietly. I'll talk to the lawyer. Dr. Okafor nodded. Good. She can meet with us tomorrow afternoon if you're feeling up to it. But today, you need to rest and let your body recover from the flare. I'm going to make lunch, and then I have some work to catch up on. You're welcome to watch TV, read, whatever you need. That afternoon, while Dr. Okafor worked in her home office, I lay on the couch and let myself fully feel everything I'd been suppressing. Grief for the family I wished I had, anger at years of invalidation and dismissal, fear about what came next, relief that someone finally believed me. It all crashed over me in waves, and I cried until I had no tears left. My phone buzzed with another message. This time it was from my father. Your mother is very upset. You've always been selfish, but this is a new low. After everything we've done for you, letting you live here rent-free, driving you to appointments, and this is how you repay us? By having your doctor attack your aunt and then hiding out like a child? You need to come home, apologize to Carol, and start acting like a grateful adult. We raised you better than this. I read the message 3 times, looking for any acknowledgement of what Carol had said, any concern for how I was doing, any recognition that maybe I was the one who deserved an apology. There was nothing. Just anger that I'd disrupted family harmony and expectations that I should apologize for being humiliated. I screenshot the message and forwarded it to Dr. Okafor. She came out of her office immediately. This is going in your medical file. This is also going to the lawyer. Your father is explicitly stating that they expect you to apologize to your abuser and threatening your housing stability if you don't comply. That's coercion. She sat down next to me. I need to tell you something, and it's going to be hard to hear. Your family isn't going to change. I've seen this pattern before. When someone in a family system starts setting boundaries and refusing to accept abuse, the family usually doubles down instead of self-reflecting. They increase pressure, make threats, recruit other family members to their side, anything to force the person back into their assigned role. She paused. Your assigned role in your family is the identified patient, the problem person, the one who's never quite good enough. Your illness confirmed that role in their minds. If you start refusing to play that part, if you start demanding respect and validation, the whole family system gets disrupted. They're not going to like that. So what do? I felt helpless, trapped between impossible choices. You build a new life. It sounds dramatic, but that's what it takes. You find housing that's not dependent on them. You create boundaries around contact and communication. You build a support system of people who understand chronic illness. You focus on managing your health without their interference. And yes, you probably end up with a smaller family, but the people who remain are actually good for you. She squeezed my hand. The lawyer tomorrow will help you understand your legal options. The social worker will help you find housing resources. The therapist I want you to see will help you process the emotional impact of everything. You're not alone in this. There are professionals and support systems designed specifically to help people in your situation. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept spinning through scenarios, imagining confrontations, playing out conversations where I finally said everything I'd been holding back for years. By morning, I felt exhausted and my symptoms were worse. Heart rate elevated, blood pressure unstable, brain fog so thick I could barely think clearly. Patricia Keene, the lawyer, arrived at Dr. Okafor's apartment at 2 in the afternoon. She was a woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair and the kind eyes of someone who'd heard every terrible story and still managed to maintain compassion. She set up her laptop on the dining table and pulled out a legal pad covered in notes. Dr. Okafor briefed me on your situation and sent me the recording from Christmas dinner plus screenshots of the subsequent messages and social media posts. I've reviewed everything, and I want to start by saying you have several strong legal options here. She opened her laptop and pulled up a document. First, let's talk about what happened at the dinner. Your aunt made false statements about your medical condition in front of multiple witnesses. She accused you of faking a disability for financial gain. That's defamation. The fact that your doctor immediately corrected her with medical facts doesn't erase the harm of the initial statements. Then she went on social media and doubled down, making additional false claims that have been seen by hundreds of people. That's ongoing defamation with measurable damages. Patricia looked at me directly. I want to be honest with you. Family lawsuits are emotionally brutal. Even when you're legally in the right, the process of suing a relative tears apart whatever relationship remains. Your extended family will take sides. People who've been neutral will be forced to choose. It gets ugly. She paused. But sometimes ugly is necessary. Sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to use legal tools, even against family members. The question is, are you prepared for that? I thought about my father's message, my mother's phone call to Dr. Okafor, Carol's Facebook posts, the relatives commenting and sharing and adding their own attacks. They've already torn it apart, I said. I'm just recognizing it now. Patricia nodded approvingly. Good. That's the clarity we need. So here's what I propose. We send a cease and desist letter to Carol demanding she remove all social media posts about you and refrain from making further statements about your medical condition. We give her 10 days to comply. If she doesn't, we file a defamation suit. What about my parents? I asked. The messages my dad sent? Patricia glanced at Dr. Okafor, then back at me. Your parents are engaged in what we call financial and housing coercion. They're threatening your living situation to force compliance with their demands. That's harder to address legally unless they actually follow through on the threats. but it's definitely something we document and prepare for. She pulled up another document. There's also the disability rights angle. You're receiving Social Security disability payments, which means you're recognized by the federal government as disabled. Harassment of a disabled person, particularly harassment that questions the legitimacy of their disability, can violate the Americans with Disabilities Act in certain contexts. Your aunt's statements could potentially be seen as disability discrimination, especially if there's a pattern of this behavior affecting your access to family support, housing, or other resources. Patricia spent the next hour walking me through options, timelines, costs, and likely outcomes. By the end, my head was spinning, but I had clarity about next steps. Send the cease and desist. Document everything. Prepare for the relationship with my family to deteriorate further before it got better, if it ever got better. After Patricia left, Dr. Okafor made dinner, and we ate in companionable silence. I was grateful she didn't push me to talk about everything we'd just learned. Around 8, my phone rang. It was my grandmother. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Lena, honey, it's Grandma." Her voice was wavering, uncertain. "I wanted to check on you. Your mother said you're staying with your doctor, and that seems very strange, dear. Are you all right?" I took a breath. "I'm safe, Grandma. I'm recovering from a symptom flare that was triggered by the stress of Christmas dinner." There was a long pause. Carol told me she was just trying to help. She said she's worried about you, that you seemed very depressed at dinner, and she thought maybe talking about it would help you open up. She didn't mean any harm. The revisionist history was staggering. "Grandma, Carol accused me of faking my illness for attention and money in front of 23 people. She said I was manipulating everyone and that disabled people like me are a burden on society. Dr. Okafor witnessed everything and has a recording of exactly what was said." My grandmother's voice got defensive. "Well, Carol said your doctor was very aggressive and rude. She said she felt attacked. And honestly, Lena, some of what Carol said makes sense. You do seem to have a lot of health problems and you're so young. Maybe some of it is stress or depression. That's not the same as faking, but it's something to consider." I felt something snap inside me. "Grandma, I have postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. It's a neurological condition that's been documented by multiple specialists through years of testing. I'm not stressed or depressed into having a heart rate of 180 when I stand up. I'm not imagining the dozen hospitalizations or the medications I take daily just to function. My illness is real, it's documented, and it's not up for debate." She made a small disapproving sound. "There's no need to get snippy with me, dear. I'm just trying to understand. Your mother is very upset, and your father is talking about cutting you off financially if you don't come home and make peace with Carol. They're your parents. You should listen to them. They're threatening to cut me off because I won't apologize to someone who humiliated me. That's manipulation, Grandma. And the fact that you're calling to deliver that message instead of asking how I'm doing or if I'm okay tells me everything I need to know about whose side you're on." I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking. Dr. Okafor had been standing in the doorway listening. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. "That was hard and you did it anyway." The next week was a blur of phone calls, appointments, and difficult decisions. I met with Teresa Vaughn, the social worker, who helped me apply for subsidized disability housing. The waiting list was 6 months minimum, but it was a start. I met with a therapist named Dr. Raymond Cole who specialized in trauma and family dysfunction. He helped me understand that what I was experiencing wasn't just family drama, but a pattern of systemic invalidation that had been damaging me for years. Patricia sent the cease and desist letter to Carol. Her lawyer responded with a letter of his own, claiming Carol had done nothing wrong and threatening to countersue for harassment. Patricia wasn't impressed. Empty threats. They know they don't have a case. My parents called constantly. My father left voicemails that progressed from angry to pleading to threatening. My mother showed up at Dr. Okafor's building twice, trying to get past the security desk. My brother sent long texts about how I was destroying the family and making everything about me. Extended relatives picked sides. A few, very few, reached out to offer support. My mom's sister, Aunt Grace, called to say she'd always known something was wrong with how the family treated me. My cousin on my dad's side, someone I barely knew, sent a message saying she had fibromyalgia and understood what it was like to have family dismiss your illness. But mostly, the family circled the wagons around Carol, protecting the status quo, choosing comfort over truth. On New Year's Eve, exactly 1 week after Christmas dinner, Carol's lawyer informed Patricia that Carol would not be removing her social media posts and believed she had every right to share her concerns about her niece's well-being. "That's their official response," Patricia told me over the phone. "We file the defamation suit on January 2nd. The court will be open and we'll have everything ready to go." I spent New Year's Eve at Dr. Okafor's apartment, watching the city fireworks from her balcony, thinking about how much my life had changed in 7 days. A week ago, I'd still been trying to maintain relationships with people who didn't believe I was really sick. Now I was preparing to sue my aunt, planning to move out of my parents' house, and building a support system of professionals who actually understood chronic illness. Dr. Okafor joined me on the balcony with 2 mugs of tea. "How are you holding up?" I considered the question honestly. "My body feels terrible. The flare is still active and probably will be for another week at least. Emotionally, I'm a mess. I'm grieving the family I thought I had while trying to accept the family I actually have. But underneath all of that, I feel something I haven't felt in years. I paused, searching for the right word. Hope. I feel hope that things might actually get better. Dr. Okafor smiled. They will. Not quickly and not easily, but they will. You're doing the work. You're setting boundaries. You're choosing your health over family approval. That's incredibly hard, but it's the only way forward. The lawsuit was filed on January 2nd. Within 24 hours, my entire extended family knew. My phone exploded with messages, almost all negative. I was called ungrateful, vindictive, money-hungry, selfish. Multiple relatives accused me of attacking a family member who was just trying to help. My parents sent a formal letter through their own lawyer, stating that I was no longer welcome in their home and needed to retrieve my belongings by January 15th or they would be donated. The housing coercion Patricia had warned about was happening, but I had a plan. Dr. Okafor had a colleague, another doctor with dysautonomia patients, who ran a shared housing program for chronically ill adults. There was an opening in a 3-bedroom house where 2 other young women with chronic conditions lived. The rent was subsidized through a medical charity. I could move in immediately. On January 10th, with Dr. Okafor, Teresa the social worker, and Leo helping despite his conflicted feelings about everything, I retrieved my belongings from my parents' basement. My mother stood in the driveway crying, begging me to drop the lawsuit and come back home. My father wouldn't even come outside, just watched from the window with his arms crossed. The house I moved into was small but clean, with 2 housemates who understood what it meant to have good days and bad days, who didn't question when I needed to rest or when I couldn't do certain activities. Rachel had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Maya had chronic fatigue syndrome. We had an unspoken understanding that illness wasn't weakness and needing help wasn't failure. The lawsuit moved forward slowly, as legal cases do. Carol's lawyer tried multiple times to get it dismissed. Patricia shot down every attempt with documentation, recordings, and medical evidence. Discovery revealed that Carol had been making similar statements about me to family members for years, creating a pattern of defamation that strengthened our case. In March, Carol's lawyer approached Patricia about settling. They offered to have Carol remove the Facebook posts and issue a brief statement saying she'd been misinformed about my condition. Patricia presented the offer to me. It's weak. We can do better at trial. But it's your choice. I thought about it. What would a better settlement look like? Patricia pulled out her notes. Public apology specifically stating that your condition is real and legitimate. Removal of all social media posts. Agreement not to discuss your medical condition with anyone outside immediate family. Financial compensation for damages. And a clause stating that if she violates any term, the full settlement amount triples. We countered with those terms. Carol's lawyer said she'd never agree. We prepared for trial. In April, 2 weeks before the scheduled court date, Carol's lawyer called Patricia in a panic. Apparently, Carol's employer, a school district where she worked as an administrator, had become aware of the lawsuit and the details of her harassment of a disabled relative. The school board was concerned about her judgment and whether someone who publicly questioned a person's disability should be in a position of authority over special needs students. Carol was facing potential job consequences. Suddenly, she was very motivated to settle. The final settlement included everything Patricia had demanded. A public apology to be posted on Carol's Facebook for 30 days, removal of all previous posts, a non-disparagement clause, financial damages that covered my legal fees plus additional compensation, and the tripling penalty clause if she violated terms. Carol's apology was posted on May 1st. It was brief and clearly written by her lawyer, but it was public and it was permanent. I made incorrect and harmful statements about my niece Lena Novak's medical condition. Lena has been diagnosed with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, a legitimate chronic illness. My statements were not based on medical knowledge, and I should not have questioned her diagnosis. I apologize for any harm caused. The comments on the post were mixed. Some relatives doubled down on supporting Carol, but others, seeing the formal legal apology, started questioning the narrative they'd been sold. A few reached out to me privately to apologize for believing Carol's version. My grandmother called in tears, saying she hadn't realized how serious things were, how wrong Carol had been. I accepted her apology but maintained boundaries. Trust, once broken that thoroughly, took time to rebuild if it could be rebuilt at all. My parents never apologized. They maintained that I'd overreacted, that suing Carol was vindictive and unnecessary, that I'd chosen to destroy the family over a simple disagreement. They sent occasional messages asking when I'd be ready to reconcile, but always with the unspoken assumption that reconciliation meant I would apologize and return to my old role. I stopped responding. Dr. Raymond Cole, my therapist, helped me understand that I couldn't make them see what they refused to see, couldn't make them acknowledge harm they weren't willing to recognize. The best I could do was protect myself and build a life that didn't depend on their validation. Dr. Okafor continued to be not just my doctor, but a genuine friend. She introduced me to her sister Amara, who became a mentor and support as I navigated life with chronic illness. Through Amara, I connected with online support groups and local meetups for people with dysautonomia and related conditions. I found community among people who understood invisible illness, who didn't need me to prove I was sick, who celebrated good days and supported bad days without judgment. My health didn't magically improve. POTS doesn't work that way. But without the constant stress of family invalidation, my symptoms became more manageable. My flares were less frequent and less severe. I could focus on treatment and self-care without guilt. I learned to use my wheelchair on bad days without shame. I adjusted medications without worrying about the cost or my parents' opinions. I built a life that worked for my body instead of trying to force my body to work for other people's expectations. By summer, I'd started volunteering with a disability rights organization, helping other chronically ill people document medical abuse and navigate family dysfunction. I shared my story anonymously on support forums, and the response was overwhelming. Dozens of people messaged saying they'd experienced similar situations, that seeing someone successfully stand up to family invalidation gave them courage to set their own boundaries. In August, my brother Leo reached out asking to meet for coffee. I was hesitant but agreed. We met at a cafe near my new house, and for the first time since Christmas, we talked honestly. "I should have defended you," he said immediately. At the dinner, in the aftermath, all of it. I was wrong. I let family pressure convince me that keeping peace was more important than standing up for what was right. I'm sorry. I appreciated the apology, but I needed more. Why didn't you defend me? In that moment, when Carol was saying all those things, why did you stay silent? Leo stared at his coffee. Because I believed some of it. Not all of it, but some. You've been sick for years, and it's been really hard on Mom and Dad. I saw how stressed they were, how much money your medical stuff cost, how their whole lives revolved around your health, and I guess I started resenting it. When Carol said what she said, part of me thought maybe she had a point. Maybe you were playing it up a little. Maybe you weren't trying hard enough. He looked up. I was wrong. After the lawsuit, after seeing the medical documentation, after actually researching POTS instead of just assuming I understood, I realized how wrong I was. You weren't playing sick. You were actually sick and trying to hide how bad it was so we wouldn't think less of you. We talked for 2 hours. Leo apologized for his silence, his complicity, his failure to educate himself about my condition. He asked how he could support me going forward. I gave him resources to read, boundaries to respect, and permission to rebuild our relationship slowly. He was the only family member who did the work to truly understand and change. In October, I attended a disability advocacy conference where I spoke on a panel about family medical abuse. I told my story publicly for the first time, using my real name, owning every detail. The response was powerful. After the panel, a line of people waited to talk to me, sharing their own stories of family members who dismissed their illnesses, who accused them of faking, who made them feel like burdens for being disabled. I exchanged contact information with dozens of people, building a network of mutual support and understanding. One woman, probably in her 60s, gripped my hand with tears in her eyes. "My daughter has been telling me for years that I don't support her illness properly. I didn't understand what she meant until I heard your story. Thank you for helping me see what I've been doing wrong." Moments like that made everything worthwhile. The lawsuit, the family rupture, the difficult rebuilding process. By the time the anniversary of that Christmas dinner rolled around, I was living a completely different life. I had stable housing with housemates who understood chronic illness. I had a support system of medical professionals, therapists, and fellow patients. I had boundaries with family members that protected my health. I had purpose through my advocacy work. And I had self-respect, the kind that comes from refusing to accept mistreatment even when it costs you everything familiar. Dr. Okafor invited me to her family's Christmas gathering. I was nervous about attending another family holiday after what happened the previous year, but this was different. Amara was there with her husband and kids. Dr. Okafor's parents, who'd learned their lesson about disability through Amara's experience, treated me with genuine kindness and respect. Her brothers asked intelligent questions about POTS and accommodations. When I had to sit down during dinner preparation because my heart rate spiked, nobody made it weird. Someone just brought me a chair and continued the conversation. That's what family was supposed to look like. People who made space for your limitations without making you feel less than. People who believed you when you said you weren't feeling well. People who adjusted their expectations instead of demanding you destroy yourself to meet them. As we sat around their dinner table, laughing and sharing stories, I realized I'd finally found what I'd been missing. Belonging without performance, acceptance without conditions, love without having to prove I was worthy of it. The family I was born into couldn't give me that. Maybe never could. But the family I'd built, chosen through necessity and courage, offered everything I'd needed all along. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Merry Christmas, Lena. We miss you. Your father and I hope you'll consider coming home for Easter. It's been a year. Surely that's enough time to get over what happened." I showed the text to Dr. Okafor. She read it and shook her head. "They still don't get it." I deleted the message without responding. Maybe someday my parents would do the work to understand why their daughter had disappeared from their lives. Maybe they'd read about POTS, attend therapy, acknowledge the harm they'd enabled and participated in, or maybe they wouldn't. Either way, I was done waiting for them to change. I was done sacrificing my health and peace for relationships that required me to be smaller, sicker, and more apologetic than I needed to be. I was done being the problem they wanted to fix instead of the person they should have protected. A year after that Christmas dinner where my aunt announced I was faking my illness, and my doctor was sitting right there to witness and document every word, I was finally free. Free from the gaslighting, the invalidation, the constant need to prove I was sick enough to deserve compassion. Free to be chronically ill without shame, disabled without apology, struggling without judgment. The path to that freedom had been brutal, but on the other side was a life worth living, surrounded by people who saw me clearly and loved me anyway. That was the real gift, more valuable than any family reconciliation could ever be. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.